And joining us now on the debate for the full hour tonight, Carolyn Harris, PhD candidate in history at Queen's University. Vinita Srivastava, professor of journalism at Ryerson University. Quam McKenzie, director of health equity at CAMH. And Carla Maria Luqueta, contributing Your Agenda Insight essayist. And we remind everybody that you are part of tonight's Your Agenda broadcast. That's why we call it Your Agenda. Our fifth column blogger, Mike Miner, is hosting a live chat on our Inside Agenda blog. Go to our website, tvo.org/theagenda, or on our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/theagenda. You can send us a tweet if you want to get in on the action. That's twitter.com, #YourAgenda. Jump in, we'll get your comments up on the screen throughout tonight's broadcast. Okay, everybody, welcome. Nice to have you all here. I want to start by having our director, Michael Smith, play some tape here. This has gone viral. 14 million hits in 2 weeks because 2 billion people in just a few hours are going to be watching this wedding. Roll tape. I'm pretty sure the real thing is not going to be like that, but this thing we only show the last 30 seconds of this thing, but it goes on for 2 minutes, and you should go to YouTube and watch it. It's absolutely hysterical. But it is, the fact that this has gone viral, Quam suggests that this is the event of the year, maybe of the decade.
This looks like it's going to be the event of the year.
How come?
Well, it's a wonderful story. It's two young, beautiful people getting married. It's got a wonderful backstory, as in his mother died in tragic circumstances, but it's also a story that matters. He is a prince, he is a second in line to the throne, and the Commonwealth, which a queen is a head of, has 2 billion people in it. So it's everything. It also comes at a time where we've had a lot of bad news. So it's a good news story at a time where we've all had a lot of bad news. And the last thing which makes it the perfect storm is that they are the prime asset of the firm. And the firm was a phrase that the Queen used herself.
Meaning the royals.
For the royals.
Okay.
They're the prime asset, and that prime asset is bound to, when they're going to have a wedding, they're going to use it and they're going to milk it for all it's worth. So it's a perfect storm. And I tell you, if it looked anything like that video, I'd be getting up at 6 o'clock tomorrow morning to watch it.
You'll get up at 3 to watch it if it's like that
video.
video.
If it was like that video, it looks like it would be a celebration. Now, it's going to be a celebration, and good luck to them. But if it was that celebration, that would be fabulous.
Now, Quam, you've been on the program many times in the past, but for those who don't know you, you're not making up that accent. Where are you from originally?
I'm not making up that accent at all. I'm from Midtown in Toronto, as you know, and that's where the accent comes from. So I mean, it's an English accent.
I thought I heard a hint of it there.
As such, I'm a British subject, and these are clearly my betters, who I doff my cap to, and who I'm going to be very interested in watching them.
Good stuff.
I'm actually an ardent Republican, but
that's for another show.
That's for another show, and good luck to them.
Carla, you getting up early to watch this thing?
I probably won't, but there's all kinds of ways that I can catch up on it.
Why is it of so much fascination to so many people, apparently?
I think it's really interesting. Quam brought something up about how they're his betters. They're actually not fully his betters. Kate is a commoner. There's been much made of that. And actually their evening celebration will be for their friends and family members, but it's going to be a knees up, is what they're calling it in the UK, which is kind of a no holds barred party.
What are they calling it?
Knees up.
Oh, knees up.
Knees
I got it. Okay.
As in knees up, Mother Brown.
Got it.
So
okay.
I think that the fact that they're having their own party on their own terms, and it could look a lot like that.
Carolyn, how come?
How come it could look a lot like that?
How come this is such a big deal?
such a big deal? I think it's extremely historically significant. The New York Times ran a piece on previous royal weddings at Westminster Abbey, and the first one there was William the Conqueror's son, Henry I. And so there has been nearly 1,000 years of royal weddings in Westminster Abbey, and it'll be interesting to see to what degree William and Kate draw on past precedents, and to what degree they put their own stamp on things, such as the knees up party that you're mentioning.
Now that is a good point. We understand that the two of them actually are not huge on tradition, and they like to go their own way. But I guess the fact is, they've been doing weddings there for 1,000 years, and there's a certain way of doing things, isn't there?
There have been certain traditions established through previous royal weddings. William's great-grandmother, Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, who's the wife of George VI, started the tradition of laying her bouquet on the tomb of the unknown soldier. Started this tradition after World War I, and Kate is expected to do the same. So there are certain precedents that they're very clearly taking from the previous royal weddings of William's grandparents and great-grandparents that also took place in the Abbey.
Vanita, you going to get up early and watch this thing?
No, I don't.
Really?
I don't think so. But I love that. Yeah, I love that you played that clip. The ad, right? It's an ad for it's a T-Mobile cell phone ad, because the cell phone ad actually comes from. Do you remember the YouTube clip that the ad comes from? It's one of the top 10 clips of 2010 or 2009, right? It's the
original one. You mean
original
that
one.
First wedding. That's right.
First wedding.
Which was a real thing, though.
They're like going down. It
Yeah.
was a real.
It was a real wedding,
it's a
and
real
people
party.
decided to dance down the.
And I remember watching the top 10 YouTube clips, and I actually, in this really sappy moment, kind of had tears in my eyes. You know, it's that sort of. It was really a joyful moment. I felt like a sap, and I felt kind of, okay, I am sort of falling prey to this idea of this really feel-good moment. And I think that's why so many people are going to get up tomorrow morning to watch it. It's that idea of that really feel-good, joyful moment. But I don't think it's going to necessarily look like that. I think the T-Mobile ad is, for one, is much happier and sort of freer, even if it's going to be the knee-up idea. But it's also way more diverse. Like if you look at sort of that T-Mobile ad, it's like, it's a sort of picture of diversity, and I love the idea. I don't know if the royal wedding tomorrow is going to look like that.
Well, the people who partook in that spoof, they're most. I mean, I got to tell you, half of them are dead ringers for the real people. If you watch that thing, which is on our website, tvo.org/theagenda. I mean, the guy who plays Harry is a spitting image of Harry. The woman who plays Camilla Parker Bowles, you wouldn't know it wasn't her. It's astonishing how well they've done this thing.
But the idea is sort of this British, like it's a sort of multicultural Britain that I think they're portraying there.
Gotcha.
I think you're right that if it were just left to the guests of the royal family, then it wouldn't be very diverse. But actually the guest list will include the heads of states of the Commonwealth. And so probably the people who have those prime seats will probably look a bit like that. They will look diverse because they have the whole of the Commonwealth, apart from notable exceptions who are going to be there.
This next excerpt I want to read for you from Doug Saunders' The Globe and Mail is called "The Stuff Fairy Tales Are Made Of." Michael, if you would, let's bring this up. "A princely marriage," the great Victorian constitutional thinker Walter Bagot wrote, "is the brilliant addition of a universal fact, and as such it rivets mankind. Just so, a royal family sweetens politics by the seasonable addition of nice and pretty events." He was speaking of just the sort of pomp we will witness on Friday. Quam, you touched on this earlier. How badly does the royal family need this to be just,
They need this. They need this. The royal family has a significant problem, some people would say, and they would say that significant problem is Charles. Charles is next in line to the throne, and in a number of places he's unpopular, especially in places like the Antipodes, so in New Zealand and also in Australia, who may well vote to not have the Queen or not have the royalty as a head of state. Now, the idea that behind Charles there is this lovely guy who could possibly be their king might change a few minds, but certainly the firm does need good publicity. It's had a lot of bad publicity recently, and it needs good publicity, and this is good publicity.
Carolyn, how about that? Does the firm need this?
I would say that that recent events among the royal family that have been heavily publicized have been either negative events or sad ones. In some ways, there was the death of Princess Diana that did not present the royal family in the best of lights, and then 2002 there's the funerals of the Queen Mother and Princess Margaret. So there have been a lot of these sad events, whereas the marriage of Prince William and Kate Middleton is a happy event, and it celebrates the renewal of the monarchy and really puts forward the future of the royal family going forward.
Carla, we can't know, of course, but we can speculate and suspect. Charles and Di, how much are they going to be on the minds? Because after all, same place, same kind of setting, lots of guests on television, yes. 1981.
Charles and Di got married at St. Paul's, I think, because they had a much bigger...
I take it back.
They had a much bigger audience in the actual cathedral. I think that it's not only are women everywhere, like myself, who was the same age as Diana when she got married, and so this harkens back to that for me. I don't have the same belief in fairy tales anymore. But it's also having watched William and Harry as 15 and 12-year-old boys walking behind their mother's coffin with the little insignia mummy or mother or whatever it said. We want to see them do well. We want to see them live happy and much more normal lives than she did. It's hard to say that William is living a normal life with this wedding, but they have much more normal lives than their parents did.
It did say mummy. We just are showing the pictures of it right now.
Okay. So I think it's important for us. For me anyway, I love seeing them happy. I even love hearing about Harry's escapades, because it means they're living normal lives. They've recovered. They're happy.
Vanita, Diana's brother's going to be there with, I guess, with his third wife. Awkward, I guess, right? Is that what we say? I mean, I gather he's being kept far away from Prince Charles, but still, the man who really took some pretty tough shots at the firm is going to be in the hall. Should we be worried about that?
I think that the family, the firm, has got a good grip on their publicity and what they're putting out. I don't think they're going to, they've got it on YouTube, they've got the baby pictures of Kate on Flickr coming through, they've got the young princes as well. So, I don't think we should be worried. I don't think they're worried.
There is still, I shouldn't say it, I should ask you, do you think there is still a bit of a cult of Diana, though, that is, surrounding this event?
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Not only is there, but I think, as you say, I think they've been playing on it.
Who's they?
I think
the firm.
The firm. It does sound just a bit too much like a mafioso family, doesn't it? Yeah. I think that. Am I right in saying, and this is going to make me sound like an out of touch man, because some people have been saying this is a girls' event, which I don't necessarily agree with. The engagement ring is...
Yeah, the mums.
There's Diana's engagement ring, isn't it?
Yes.
So they've been playing on that. Yeah. That memory could have been pushed out, but that memory has been deliberately brought in. It is the same engagement ring. Now, myself, having that engagement ring probably wouldn't have been my first choice, looking at what happened to the marriage, but that is what they've decided to do. So they've brought that into the room. And, when you look at, and some people might correct me, but my figures were maybe 750 million people watched the marriage of Charles and Di.
Right.
And maybe 2 billion people watched the death, the funeral
of Princess Diana. Yes, again.
And so, if you are looking at sort of things that are going to get people in, then you remind people of the story. And remember, if you watch, say, 24 or anything like that, it always starts off with the story this far is. That they have done that brilliantly. All of these threads have been brought together, and we're watching.
Carolyn, let me ask you about the jewelry, though. If you wanted to pay tribute to or pay respect to your late mother, it would not be considered an outrageous thing to want to wear her ring, right? or to offer her ring as the engagement ring.
I know, but what's interesting about this is that Diana apparently did not attribute a great deal of significance to that particular ring, that later when she gave interviews, she talked as though her engagement was quite short, was quite overwhelming, and there was a tray of different jewels, and she picked that one, and that ended up being the ring, that Diana didn't tie a sentimental story to this. So it's interesting that William and Kate are imbuing this ring with a greater significance as part of their wedding, that William proposed in Kenya, he'd had that ring in his rucksack, and then he surprised Kate with it. And so they're putting a romantic story on this ring that originally, at least according to Diana's accounts, which granted were after the failure of her marriage, so we're probably colored by that, that they're giving this ring a romantic significance that it didn't necessarily have for Charles and Diana.
Understood. I want to invite a fifth person to join our conversation here. So joining us now on the line from Syracuse, New York, is Robert Thompson. He's a professor of popular culture at Syracuse University. And Bob, we're happy to have you on the line from upstate New York. Now, let's start with this. We've been talking, I don't know if you've been able to hear the last few minutes of our conversation, but we've been talking about kind of the presence of Princess Diana at this thing. And I wonder how you feel her, without getting too touchy-feely about this, how the spirit of Diana might be present at this event.
Well, I think we carry an awful lot of the baggage of that 1981 wedding to this one. It's almost as though this could be the wedding that redeems that last one, because there is a sense down here anyway of this almost won't be fooled again kind of thing. We watched that wedding and we completely got swept up in the romance and the Cinderella and the carriage and the horses and the gown and all the rest of it. But then, of course, we watched what else happened in that story. The betrayal and the divorce, and of course the horrible, tragic death of Diana in 1997. And I think in those 30 years between that last royal wedding and this one, there is a sense of cynicism that is kicked in. 15 seasons of The Bachelor, which has co-opted all the kitschy iconography of Cinderella royal wedding kinds of stuff, have really changed the way I think people down here think about a lot of this. But since this is a wedding where they've known each other more, they really seem to love each other, maybe this is the second act that can redeem the first act, and that may be part of what's giving some voltage to this story in the United States anyway.
Well, let me talk a little more about the first act, and to do that I want to quote once again Doug Saunders, who wrote a nice piece in the Globe and Mail about this a week or so ago. It goes like this: "The heir to the throne has spent the past decade transforming himself from the morose face of regal indifference into a powerful businessman, outspoken political activist, and aggressive lobbyist." Talking about Charles, of course. "The black spider letters and meetings with ministers are only the beginning. Laws that have apparently angered him into action, according to official records, have involved health, education, the national budget, foreign policy, and the military. For a lengthy period, he attempted to have the Labour government abolish or radically reduce the powers of its 2000 Human Rights Act. Much of his anger seems to be directed at legislation directly related to his military regiment or his $50 million business empire, which includes nationally marketed and distributed lines of food, alternative medicines, and housing developments. His business activism came to a head a year ago when he used his lobbying might to stop the redevelopment of Chelsea Barracks. Specifically, he got on the phone to the Qatari royal family who owned the site and talked them into canceling the project just as construction was beginning. It has emerged that he has intervened in at least 4 other major London projects by acclaimed architects, successfully stopping at least one. This history of activism was enough for some observers, including members of government, to suggest that Charles had become unsuitable for the succession." The bad memories of 1981, his kind of checkered past, all of the controversy he's involved in right now, Vanita, this has raised questions about whether or not the Queen can bypass it. Well, not the Queen but whether he can be bypassed when she dies and the crown go right to William. What do you think?
This, I mean, what I think is happening in some ways here is they're bypassing the generation. So, by broadcasting this out to YouTube, they are basically saying, okay, there is a generation that was around in 1981 that is cynical. There is perhaps my generation that is cynical. They saw the divorce, they saw Charles acting in the way that he did, and they don't trust him. But there's a whole new generation of young folks who perhaps believe in this potential for the royal family to kind of, rise up a
With
little
him
bit.
on, to steal an immediate phrase, with him as the king?
I don't see why not.
Okay.
I don't see why not.
Carolyn, what do you say?
I think it very unlikely that Charles will be passed over simply on the basis of William being more popular. This would create precedents of elective monarchy to a certain degree, which would influence future generations. It would be difficult for potential king or queen in waiting to maintain that aura of impartiality while also having to prove themselves the most popular person, because you might get passed over. So I think on the basis of unpopularity, it would be unlikely to happen. The Commonwealth would have to consent. But if Charles...
That's true. Let's just follow up on that for a second.
Yeah.
Each Commonwealth country would have to say, yes, we don't want you, or yes, we do want you,
Yes.
right?
No, that's-
Yep.
Yeah.
And that, but if Charles's ecological or architectural activism was actively conflicting with his role as an impartial constitutional monarch, that's when there could be the possibility of the various levels of the British government wondering whether or not they can work with him in his capacity as king.
Quam wants
I
to
think
take
there are
issue.
two different things. I think that there is a question about whether he could be King of England, which is pretty straightforward, actually. He is the heir. He'd have to abdicate, or they'd have to change the constitution, which is not going to happen. Now, being head of the Commonwealth is something completely different. Being head of the Commonwealth, the Queen is the head of the Commonwealth, but there is not succession to the head of the Commonwealth. That's a ceremonial title, and they have to make a decision when she goes, who follows. So that's something different.
Each country?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
That is something completely different. So there is no succession to the head of the Commonwealth. Now, this idea, the reason this idea comes in is because the whole thing is bananas, really, quite honestly. I mean, this idea that you have this
Is that a
sort
technical
of...
phrase?
Yeah, sorry?
That's a technical term?
My parents come from the Caribbean, so we use... But this idea that people choose their monarch. I mean, this is a dynasty. It's handed down. That's what it is. That's what a monarchy is.
No, but if he decided that it was good for the firm
He
to be
would have
bypassed,
to abdicate.
right? He would, and
he would have to abdicate.
Yeah.
And I think that's very unlikely.
Carla, what would be in the best interest, do you think, of the firm? It's funny. We just had a tweet come up on the screen here. It said, "Long live the Queen."
I was just going to say that. I mean,
that right?
you know, the Queen Mother died. She was,
101 or something.
yeah. So I think it's a bit of a premature question in some ways. If she's anything like her mother,
She can do the job.
yeah. I think that the point of popularity is really important, because we do have a generation that is, and a generation below that and below that, that have been brought up very differently than we were. Some people might say a little bit more superficially. So I think the popularity factor is important. And just yesterday, I put out a question on my Facebook status whether or not people were going to watch it. A friend of mine in her 20s was saying that when she was in grade 6, she was dreaming of marrying Prince William. So, you know, he is popular. He is loved.
Bob, let me get your take. I mean, you guys in the States love the monarchy, you know, probably more than we do here in Canada. And if the contingent of press you're sending over there to cover this thing is any indication, I'd say that's the case. But what do you think on that issue of whether Charles ought to be passed over?
Well, I mean, I suppose there's two questions. There's the political question, where there's some very, strict rules of how this works. And then there's the show business question. I mean, I suppose if I were going to cast the next king, I would certainly cast Prince William over Prince Charles. He, for all kinds of, different reasons, generational and media savvy, and all of these kinds of things.
But he's a kid,
But
Bob.
the question becomes: is the monarchy, has it become an issue of show business? And sometimes down here, we're not so sure what the answer to that question is.
Does his age not worry you? William Wales, as he likes to call himself?
You mean the fact that he's so young?
Well, it's a bit young to become king, don't you think?
Well, yeah, I suppose. Although, let's see, if I remember my Shakespeare, people had become king at younger ages than that. I mean, the interesting point about all of this is that, for one thing, a lot of the discussion about the succession and all of that kind of thing, down here, I doubt you could find one people in 1,000 who would even be able to follow these kinds of arguments. I mean, for many people here, and I think this is true in a lot of other places, this is so much more an issue, what's going to happen tomorrow and following all of this, an issue of some global celebrities, much more than it is political entities. Now, if you're part of the Commonwealth, that's obviously a very different kind of situation. But I think one of the reasons down here why all the people who are excited about this are excited about it is that this is the only celebrity wedding that they're actually allowed to see up close and personal. When other celebrities get married, you have to settle for helicopter shots and whatever the paparazzi can get outside of locked gates. This is going to be one that you can actually watch and go into the church and see the vows and all of the rest of it. I think if we think about how this is being consumed in the United States anyway, we are probably way overestimating the sophistication of the audience that's going to be watching this.
Okay, a little pet peeve of mine here, so I'm going to go at this one more time, Carolyn. I just remember the scene in the movie The Queen, where the actor playing Tony Blair shows up to meet the Queen and say, "I'm here to become Prime Minister," and she said, "Actually, no, I call on you to be Prime Minister. You don't call on me." And admittedly, Queen Elizabeth was not as old as William Wales when she became the Queen, but she did not at that point have the gravitas that she does today. And I'm just trying to imagine what it would be like for David Cameron to go have a meeting with King William and seek the advice of the monarch on issues of the day. I mean, am I the only one troubled by that?
This was an issue Queen Victoria faced. She was 18, and the press at the time made comments that this was an age where a young woman could not even be trusted to pick out a bonnet for herself, let alone to be a head of state. And yet she was having to hold her own among elder statesmen, and they were all men at this time, and she was an 18-year-old girl and had to learn how to hold her own in this position. So there are young monarchs who have grown into this role, but certainly the image they project varies based on their age on the throne. Victoria, as a young girl, projected a very different image than Victoria, the grandmother of Europe, later in her reign.
Right. So I should get over it. Right? That's the advice. Get over it, right?
I don't think that the governments, apart from being asked to open Parliament and be form a government, I think that they rarely go to the Queen to ask.
No. Elizabeth, the stories I remember reading about were such, things such as, "Oh no, I remember we tried this back in Winston's day and it didn't work then, and I don't think you ought to try it now." That kind of thing, Anyway, moving right along, that's my thing. Vanita, let me try this with you. We saw two interesting, besides the federal election polling numbers, which have been astonishing. Harris Estimate poll released yesterday showed 40% of Canadians plan to watch this wedding, but that 51% plan to watch the English leaders' debate that we had a few weeks ago. What do you infer from that?
Oh, that is good.
Okay, why is that good?
Let me think about that for a minute.
Why is that good?
40% are going to watch the wedding.
40% say they're going to watch the wedding.
And 51. Okay,
yeah.
so more are involved in
More were
politics.
interested in the Canadian political situation than they were apparently in this
That's
fairy
great
tale
news.
wedding. Because?
That's great news to me because it means that we have an engaged citizenry here, that people are actually, I look at the amount of people wanting to watch this wedding and I get a little bit worried. I think, okay, are we all just about celebrity culture? Is it all just about soaking in sort of what the sort of wealthy and the famous can have? Or does this actually have some kind of meaning in our society or in our lives?
Let me get the Americans' view on this. Go ahead, Bob. You come in here and tell me what you make of those two numbers.
Yeah, well, let's remember that these polls are highly, highly suspicious. For one thing, if you came up to me and said, are you really into the royal wedding? I'm naturally going to probably say no, simply because it's kind of embarrassing to be so swept up in this media frenzy and all the rest of it. Yet at the same time, if you said, are you going to go home tonight and read Tolstoy? I might say yes, just because it would make me sound smart.
You want to impress people.
That whole
You wouldn't know what it is.
Yeah. that 51% are going to do the civically responsible thing, and only 40% are going to do the thing that everybody seems to be talking about. It's one thing what you answer in a poll, it's another thing what you actually do. The other thing I think we have to remember is I have no idea where they pulled that 750 million people for Charles and Diana's wedding in 1981 out of. I know how we can measure ratings in certain countries where you've got statistical samples and Nielsen boxes and all the rest of it, but when you're trying to come up with a global estimate, a lot of that stuff is really pretty speculative. And this 2 billion that they're coming up with for this one, I also think we ought to take with a grain of salt. Not only am I not at all clear as to how they come up with 2 billion, I also am pretty clear that they're not going to be able to demonstrate what that total audience is after the thing has actually happened.
Well, they're going to do what all people in media do. We're going to make it up. That's all. Okay.
Well, yeah, I think you're probably right about that.
Carla, let's try this on for size here.
Can I just say something about the audience
Yeah,
first?
sure.
An article in the Wall Street Journal is estimating with the 2 billion television viewers and another 400 million people who will view it on the internet, live streaming in various ways, that means that 35% of the world's population will be watching the royal wedding tomorrow.
If we believe these numbers.
If we believe the numbers.
Right. Okay, let me try this.
That's what I was going to tell you.
There are, who here likes American football? Who here likes American football? Nobody. Okay. Who here watches the Super Bowl? Yeah, Quam said, yeah.
Turn it on, turn it off.
Turn it. Okay, I think you get where I'm
Right.
going
Way
from
more
here.
people watch that than are interested in football. You're right
This is
about that.
this is the point I'm making. There are people who don't care at all about this wedding or about this family or about British politics or the royalty. They will watch this wedding. There are people who could care a fig for football. They watch the Super Bowl. Bob, why is that?
I think it's because they are these enormous kind of public rituals. Once upon a time when there was only 3 networks down here, everything was we all watched the same things at the same time. We all fed from the same cultural trough. And that was satisfying. When you'd go to school the next morning or work the next day, you all had something to talk about. There was a shared common consensus culture. That was completely destroyed by the advent of cable and annihilated by the internet. So when it happens now, and it doesn't happen very often, the Super Bowl is an example, and stuff like this wedding are an example, there is a pleasure in the fact that we're all sharing one thing. I think the reason we're expected to be watching this in the numbers that we are is that we've essentially been told that this is one of those things that everybody's going to be watching, and therefore you had better be, or you're going to kind of miss out. I have to say, probably, I think our population is what, like 306 million,
Yes.
something like that. If that Wall Street Journal statistic of 35% is that 35% of the world will be watching some portion of this. If you now add up all of the cable and all of the internet and all of the networks and all of the rest of it, my guess is that most of the 306 million people in this country down here not only will see a portion of this wedding, but will accidentally see it even if they are desperately trying not to see it. I mean, in 48 hours, it's going to be hard not to see at least a clip or two of this unless you are really going under a rock. And my guess is that somebody under that rock is going to be showing you a clip of the wedding.
Vanita, what do you say?
No, I wanted to say something about this idea of that we've annihilated this idea that we're watching the same thing at the same time. We might not all be, watching Walter Cronkite anymore, like at the same time, or Lloyd Robertson at the same time, but we are actually ingesting the same material at the same time. So cable might be showing us different things at different times, or we go and we see a million tweets or a million blogs, but those blogs and tweets are actually replaying the same news.
We're ingesting the same information, but
we're ingesting
just
the same,
not from one source.
That's right.
It's different. Okay.
So if somebody's got an opinion of it, but they're still showing us the clip of so and so from the major network, or right?
Gotcha. Fair point. Quam?
And I was going to I was thinking about that, and I was thinking, well, actually, yeah, most people, a lot of people are going to watch it. Yeah. And the problem with the statistics, and it was the British government that came up with the idea of their lies, damn lies, and statistics, is that you're bound to be right. There are going to be 2 billion people watching it at some time over the next 48 hours. And that's fine, because I think this idea of having these cultural events, whether you like them or not, whether you're a Republican like me or not, it is a cultural event. It is something that everybody is going to be looking at, something that people are going to be talking about over the water cooler, and it's going to be something that ties us together one way or another, even if we're saying we don't like it. And that's really important. Just going slightly backwards.
I love when guests do this. I love when we've got a beautiful train going, and you say, oh, back at the last station a half an hour ago, I wanted to mention that. Sorry, go ahead.
I like the fact that 51% of people said that they were going to look at the leadership debate. I'm interested in the fact that 40% of people say they're going to watch the royal wedding. But I'm really interested in the fact that probably about 50% did actually watch the gold medal game in the hockey.
Well, that's true.
And it's an interesting progression, maybe, of what it is to be Canadian and growing up as a country, that people are looking not only at world events, but they're looking at themselves.
That was worth going back for. Excellent point.
Thank you.
Excellent point.
You know, and the other thing, one of the things I think that's good about, I agree, I think public ritual and these big shared events do have great advantages. And if nothing else, down here in the United States, we tend to be only interested in what happens within our borders. There are people here who barely know there's a country north and south of our borders. And the fact that we're going to have this big audience happening, watching a story that's actually taking place somewhere else but in our own country, I think is actually kind of encouraging in and of itself.
While you, Bob, and the rest of us here in Toronto are having this discussion, we're having it online as well. And we got a fella here named Mike Miner who keeps an eye on these things on our website, tvo.org/the agenda, where people are welcome to dial us up and opine away. And Mike, what are they saying?
Well, one of the fun things we can do on the chat is throw out a casual poll just so people can raise their hand and say what they think. And surprisingly, 75% of the people on the chat say they are not going to be watching the royal wedding tomorrow, and only a small sliver of that say that they would if it were at a different time. Like they can't watch it, but they want to. And so I wanted to see what they were following more closely, and 100% of people, when given some options, said they are following the Canadian election. Royal wedding got 0, and the NHL playoffs also got 0, so perhaps we have some suspicious numbers here. And we have people talking online from London. We have Sasha, who's a displaced Californian, married to a Canadian, who writes that she feels so lucky that she just moved to London in time for the royal wedding. It's crazy here. The block parties have already started. Some of them are going to go all night. But you can tell from talking to her that it's not so much about the event. It's certainly not the royals. As soon as the parties are over, she's going to go to Camden and do some shopping. It's that there is a huge party going on. And you know, she ties it to other events that just happen to happen, and people come together for them. It's sort of like when the blackout hit and people went to the streets here and took part in everything. It's not like people were celebrating a blackout. It's just everybody was doing something at once. There are, of course, the royal lovers. We have Daniela, who is actually going to be sleeping in a lazy boy. Her husband will be on the couch so that they can just turn it on as soon as things start up. There are other people who say that they're watching it, but it's really kind of the Michael Jackson effect. These are strange people. Harjinder says that the British monarchy in 2011 is just too strange not to watch. So these are some of the things that other people are like, this is fun for now. This is a cute couple, but eventually it'll be Charles and Diana too. So I mean, there's some cynicism in this too.
Too cynical, too cynical. No, that got a boo in this one.
And, fingers crossed for the lovely young couple.
Yeah, okay. You keep moderating away, Mike. And I don't know, does that thing, is it a two-way thing, or do you only receive tweets?
I can send tweets.
You can send stuff back too?
Yeah.
Tell that last one. Who was that last one from? That cynic?
That was Paul, and it was via Facebook.
Okay.
I'll give him a talking
Get on Facebook and give him a. I know there's a like on Facebook. Is there an unlike on Facebook? Can you
I'll
unlike
just type in
what they
a
said?
frowny face under it. How's that?
Frowny face works for me. Okay. Thanks much. That's Mike Miner at an undisclosed location here at 2180 Yonge Street. All right. Let's.
Man, you guys are such romantics.
Aren't we though? It's part of being Canadian.
I wanted to say something about celebrity, and yes, we're fascinated with celebrity, and we watch celebrity and hound celebrity even more so than when Diana was hounded to death almost, if you believe that was the case. But we can't lose sight of the fact that Catherine Middleton is a commoner. She is a normal, everyday woman who met William at university. And so I think the whole reality TV thing is coming into play here, where we feel we're watching these celebrities, but we also feel like we have access to it because she's like one of us.
I'm going to push back a bit on that. She's not like one of us at all. Her parents are stinking rich. They're spending the 50 grand to buy her wedding dress.
Self-made.
Self-made, I agree. But
They're enterprising.
They're
not royalty.
They're true, but they're in the top 1 percentile of income earners in the UK, so they're not like everybody else.
Okay, but she isn't from royalty.
That's
she isn't
true.
someone that he would have met in royal circles. It's a way for the average, everyday, 20-something-year-old person like we did with Diana to feel like they can have access to this. This could actually happen to me. And reality TV has made us, has sort of set the stage for us to expect that something like that could happen.
Well, I guess Harry's still out there, isn't
Yeah,
he? So
he is.
he's the eligible
And there have been
bachelor.
stories like that.
Carolyn,
in
go
the
ahead.
media.
Carolyn Quem.
And what's interesting is that it's been centuries since somebody who we would consider to be middle class has married someone directly in line to the throne. I believe it was in 1660 when Anne Hyde married the future James II, following a pregnancy. And so this was a very different kind of royal wedding. And at the time, she was perceived as not being of the social class, worthy of being in the highest echelons of the royal family. And it's interesting to see nowadays the way the press scrutinizes Kate Middleton's family and scrutinizes the background, so that even though on the one hand it's this Cinderella story, she's from she's self-made millionaire parents, she's marrying a prince, at the same time there's always rumors circulating that her mother said the wrong thing around the Queen, or that there's going to be difficulties, even though she apparently hasn't put a foot wrong, difficulties adjusting to royal life because of her background. And so the fact that she's neither royal nor high aristocracy continues to be relevant.
Has the mum met the Queen yet? The parents, they've met the Queen?
Yes.
I believe so. There's been a number of times they've been in the same place. There've been, their graduation from university, William's passing out ceremony from Sandhurst.
Gotcha.
They had a lunch last week.
They had a lunch, okay. You're a PhD candidate, eh?
Yes.
You know what? When you go for your, when you got to sell your thesis, you play them the tape of this program. You know a lot of stuff. I'm impressed. That's good.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, Quam and then Robert.
It's an interesting thing about this idea that people think she's a commoner, and I'm probably with you, she's not a commoner. But the thing is, it's the lottery ticket syndrome. Most people dream that they might marry a prince. Myself, I don't, but other people might.
Is that unhealthy, Quam?
That I don't
No,
dream that
not
I'm
you
going to marry a
personally.
princess?
I mean, you're here from the Center for Addiction and Mental Health. Is it
it's
a
not
psychological problem for
No.
people to want the Cinderella story in their lives?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Because most people who play the lottery would like to win, but don't really expect to win. But there's a bit of a buzz there. And this idea that people think she's a commoner and, I might marry, she married a prince, I might marry a prince. I mean, most people know that's not going to happen. And in fact that it's not going to happen and she is really not a commoner is psychologically helpful. Because if the people are actually at the same level as you and they do succeed, there's always a question about, well, have I failed? But if people are at a different level than you and they succeed, people find it much easier to say, good on you, good luck to you.
Gotcha. Robert Thompson, you wanted to add.
Well, I think the whole idea of class and caste and all of this has completely been blown to smithereens in the past, certainly in this new century. I mean, once upon a time, you knew you were a peasant, or you were an aristocrat, or you had this coat of arms, or you didn't, or you were an untouchable, or a Brahmin, and that's what you were. That's what your identity was. Now, I think so much, and then I suppose after that, the idea that class was established by wealth. Your net worth or that of your family. Now I think all bets are off. I think in any real sense of the word, Kate Middleton ceased to be a commoner in the wider sense of that word when Prince William started paying attention to her, because then she became a celebrity. Then she became someone that was ever always paying attention. And if her family is in the upper whatever 1% of wealth, she's in the upper 0.001% of fabulous beauty and gorgeous gorgeousness and all of the rest of it. She has long since ceased to be anything that I think we could establish the word common at, except in the old political sense of what that is. She is now an international celebrity, even if she came from the, sweeping up ashes from her stepsister's fireplace.
Okay, Bob, you didn't see this obviously because you're down there in Syracuse, but when you said that, and she's now Catherine incidentally, she doesn't go for Kate anymore. When Catherine Middleton was part of the 0.00001 percentile of gorgeous people in the UK, Quam Mackenzie had the funniest look on his face. He said, what? You don't think so?
I think she's good looking.
That's all?
I think there are a lot of very, very beautiful women in the UK and also lots of very beautiful women in Canada. And I think that, she's good looking, but we've been talking about statistics. To come out with a statistic that this is, that she is that
I think
beautiful.
he was being kind of figurative rather than literal.
I think figurative. I was actually probably making the face at the idea that class doesn't exist in the UK, because I know when I spent time in America, that 95% of Americans said they were middle class. But that's not the case in the UK.
But that's how they self-identify.
That's how they self-identify. It's very different in the UK.
Right. Let me read this. You all remember this is from Jonathan Franklin's book called 33 Men, which is about the Chilean miners' disaster, which had, as we all remember, such a fabulous ending. As media reports flooded the airwaves and the internet with the details of the shockingly good news, the world discovered both Chile and the Chilean miners. The eyes of the world shifted to this previously obscure corner of northern Chile. Plane flights and hotel rooms sold out. The rental price for a motorhome, a favorite on-site sleeping quarters for foreign TV crews, soared 300%. English translators throughout the region were booked solid. Hundreds of reporters rushed to the scene for a rare moment when the lens of the world focused on a story with neither blood nor violence. I remember the day this happened. I was in Ottawa at an event on Parliament Hill, and the Chilean ambassador was also there, the Chilean ambassador to Canada. And as he was introduced, the entire room, probably 300 people in the room, 400 people, stood and gave him a standing ovation. We were all so captivated by this story. Vanita, what is it about us that we need these feel-good stories?
We need feel-good stories because we've been surrounded by a decade at least of very awful, terrible stories of war, of death, of destruction. So the Chilean miners, Obama's win 3 years ago. We need those stories. I think that's one of the things. With the Chilean miners, I mean, we were so captivated because it was something that was good finally. We were all watching something. We've been watching really graphic, violent things on the screen.
I think as many people
Katrina,
watched those men come up, the
Haiti.
final guy come up, as we'll watch this wedding. It was an off-the-chart number. I mean, again, as much as we're able to quantify these things. Mm-hmm. We need this, eh, Quam?
They think it's about 1 billion.
About 1 billion people watch?
Yeah.
Okay.
And, I mean, if you think about that particular story, that was one of our worst nightmares. That's being trapped in a hole, in the dark.
For months.
For months, with no way out. That's a nightmare that everybody can key
And
into.
death possibly staring you in the face.
At any time.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and not only is it a nightmare that you're right, that comes right out of the id of, I think, every human being, but the ending is what gets better than a resurrection? I mean, literally coming up from hell to be born again into the daylight. I mean, that story had about as much as you could possibly want. If that story would have been any happier, I think my head would have exploded.
But just for a moment, I could be cynical for a moment because we did watch that. We felt really good, and then we tuned out. We stopped listening to the stories of the miners because the issues are still there for the miners in Chile.
Right.
So there's a momentary, the world does focus, and it's great. It gets attention. We feel wonderful about it, and we think we should pay attention to what's happening in the rest of the world and to the miners. And then we let it go.
And then, Carla, it did get fairly patent place after a while with, this one's got his mistress waiting for him, this one's got his wife waiting for him.
Yes,
I was forget all the sponsors that came in to give the miners their gear and their glasses.
And they had their book deal before they were out of there.
They did, didn't they?
I was watching it and, I had tears and joy and all that. I live alone. And so it was nice to be able to watch this with other people tweeting. It was nice to be able to watch this in communion with Facebook. But because I'm very claustrophobic, I was really on the edge of my seat until the last minor came out. But by that time, everything had shifted over to these little soap operas that were happening. And so I was really annoyed. Like, why are we listening to the soap opera about how this guy's got a wife and a girlfriend and who's going to meet them when there's still 5 people under there, and it isn't guaranteed that that thing isn't going to fall apart bringing them out.
Right. Let's, in our last few minutes here, touch on this. Carolyn, to you first on this. These grand media spectacles, whether it's the Olympics or the World Cup or the Chilean miners or this wedding, do they have any meaning beyond the actual event that takes place on the day?
I think they're an opportunity to create community in a sense that we're all discussing the same event. And with a royal wedding in particular, it's an event that everyone can relate to. Most people have been to a wedding at some point, possibly not to one on this grand a scale, but everyone has been to one. And so when the cake or the dress or the ring or the venue are being discussed, people can place that in their own context, and it provides them with an opportunity to engage with the institution of constitutional monarchy through their own experiences, in a sense.
Robert, what about this? Any value beyond the day?
Well, I think the same thing. The idea that we all are, of course, alone in the universe, and we're all going to die all by ourselves, even if there are lots of people around us. And I think the ability to consume at one time with so many people, one set of cultural things, whatever they might be. You know, you and I could, have nothing in common with. You could talk about your crazy Uncle Frank, who I don't know, and I could talk about my aunt, whomever, but we all kind of join in every now and again in these nexes of shared global cultural experiences, and I think that's value enough. I don't know if it's value enough to have the disproportional amount of resources and staff that are taken out of news gathering operations to send there, but I don't think we should just poo-poo this kind of thing. I think what's going to happen as all this many people watch this at the same time is in itself, by definition, a valuable thing for human beings on a planet this size to do every now and again together.
It's an interesting point. We were talking about it in the green room ahead of time. I guess Donna Friesen, Lloyd Robertson, Peter Mansbridge, the 3 main anchors in this country of national newscasts, with an election 4 days away, they are all there. Now, I'm sure they're all going to be home on Monday, but they are all there for this thing now. Quam, let me give you the last word. Do these things have any meaning beyond the spectacle of the day?
Yes. They have a meaning for the spectacle on the day, and they produce this energy and this connection. The question is, what do you do after the iconic event and how you use that iconic event? And it looks like the royal family are going to use this iconic event to relaunch itself. And then this event will have meaning for them and will have meaning for the world.
You want a 3 o'clock wake-up call, Quam? 3 a.m.?
I'll pass on that one.
You'll pass on that one. Okay. Well, we're a full-service program here, and if you wanted it, we'd be happy to provide it. Robert J. Thompson at Syracuse University, we're grateful that you could join us tonight from New York State. Appreciate you being on the program, Bob. Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
And to Carolyn Harris, that very sharp PhD candidate at Queen's University. When are you going to be up for your doctorate?
I'm hoping by this fall. Now that I've said so on TV, that'll happen.
You got to make it so.
That's commitment.
Quam McKenzie for the Center for Addiction and Mental Health, and on the other side of the table, Vinita Srivastava. I'm going to say it right, the way your parents would like me to say it, Srivastava from Ryerson University, and Carla Maria Luqueta, Agenda Insight essayist. Lovely to have you two on the program tonight as well.